The drums began before sunset. Slow at first. Deep. Heavy. The kind of drums people hear from inside their houses and immediately know something important is happening in the village square. Women came out carrying lanterns. Children ran barefoot through the dusty road. Old men dragged wooden stools beneath the nukwu tree, whispering to each other in low voices that sounded almost afraid. Because tonight was not an ordinary wedding. Tonight, Adanna was marrying the man who destroyed her family. The bride walked slowly through the crowd, her face hidden behind coral beads that brushed softly against her cheeks. She looked beautiful. Too beautiful for a woman walking into the house of her enemy. The villagers stared at her like they were watching someone being led to sacrifice. Some pitied her. Others feared her. And a few believed she had lost her mind. Beneath her white wrapper, hidden where nobody could see, red mourning beads rested against her waist. The same beads her mother wore the night their compound burned to ashes. Adanna touched them gently. Then her fingers moved lower. To the knife. Sharp. Cold. Waiting. Across the firelight stood her groom. Obinna. Tall. Silent. Feared. Even the air around him felt heavy. Men who once challenged him now lowered their eyes whenever he passed. Mothers pulled children closer when his footsteps entered the market. Years ago, people said he arrived with fire and left with blood. And somehow, Adanna had agreed to become his wife. The elder tied their hands together while the drums grew louder. Obinna glanced at her once, only once, but it was enough to make her stomach twist. Not because she loved him. No. Because she remembered that face standing beside flames the night her father screamed for mercy. Her grip tightened around the hidden knife. The village thought she was marrying for love. But before sunrise, somebody in that house would die. Before the fire, Adanna used to laugh easily. The whole village knew her for it. Not the quiet kind of laughter people forced to be polite. Hers was loud and warm and alive, the kind that made other people smile even when they didn't mean to. Every morning, she followed her father to the farms beside the river. The soil there was dark and rich, land their family had protected for generations. Her father, Chief Okeke, was one of the most respected men in Yumiri village. Not because he was rich. He wasn't. People respected him because his word meant something. When he promised to help, he helped. When two families fought, he settled the matter fairly. And when greedy men from neighboring villages tried taking land that didn't belong to them, Chief Okeke stood his ground like an iroko tree in the middle of a storm. Land is not just dirt, he always told Adanna. It carries the bones of our ancestors. Her little brother, Chike, worshipped her like she hung the moon in the sky. The boy followed her everywhere with dusty feet and endless questions. "Will you ever marry and leave me?" he once asked while helping her peel cassava. Adanna laughed and flicked water at him. Never. He believed her. That was before the stranger came. People heard about him first before they ever saw him. A wealthy man from outside the village. A man with too much money and too many dangerous friends. Some said he once wiped out an entire family over palm oil land. Others swore they saw bodies floating in the river after he settled disputes. Nobody knew which stories were true. But fear spread through the village anyway. Then one afternoon, he arrived. Obinna. Tall. Quiet. Dressed in spotless white clothes that made him look almost unreal beneath the hot village sun. The elders welcomed him carefully, like men greeting a leopard with folded hands. At first, he spoke softly. Politely. He said he wanted to buy the riverside land for development. Roads. Trade routes. Prosperity. But Chief Okeke refused immediately. "That land belongs to my ancestors," he said. "And it will belong to my children after me." Something cold passed through Obinna's eyes that day. Not anger exactly. Something worse. 3 weeks later, the fire came. Adanna woke to screams tearing through the night. Smoke swallowed the compound so fast it felt alive. Her mother was trapped inside the kitchen hut, pounding against the door while flames climbed the walls like hungry spirits. Chike vanished in the chaos. Men stormed the compound carrying machetes and burning torches. Her father fought them with bare hands until they dragged him into the yard and beat him to the ground. Adanna crawled beneath a broken basket behind the goat pen, shaking so hard her teeth cut into her lips. Then she saw him, Adanna, standing beyond the flames, watching, not shouting, not running, just watching as her world burned apart. Her father lifted his head weakly through blood and smoke. "Run," he whispered. Adanna covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming. Then, before the flames swallowed the house, the stranger looked directly at her hiding place and walked away. After the fire, something inside Adanna went quiet. Not broken, just cold. The kind of cold that sits deep inside a person and never fully leaves. Years passed, but the village still carried the smell of that night like smoke trapped inside old wood. Nobody spoke openly about what happened to her family. People lowered their voices whenever Adanna walked past. Some out of pity, others out of fear, because everybody remembered who had been standing beside the flames. Adanna moved into her aunt's small hut at the edge of the village and learned how to survive without expecting kindness from anybody. She stopped laughing, stopped singing while fetching water from the stream. Even her face changed. Harder now, like someone always waiting for bad news. Every market day, she sold yams beneath the hot sun without speaking more than necessary. Men tried flirting with her sometimes, but one look into her eyes usually sent them away. It was easier that way. Then one afternoon, everything changed again. The market became strangely quiet. Women stopped arguing over pepper prices. Children froze mid-play. Even the goats tied near the palm wine stand seemed restless. A convoy of black vehicles rolled slowly into the square. Adanna looked up, and her blood turned to ice. Adanna had returned. Older now, sharper. The years had added something dangerous to him, the kind of calm power that made people nervous without understanding why. But what shocked her most wasn't his presence. It was the way the village welcomed him. Elders rushed forward smiling. Women blessed him loudly. Men bowed their heads respectfully. Respectfully. The same man people once whispered about like a curse was now being treated like a savior. Before sunset, he paid the hospital bills of an old fisherman. The next morning, workers began repairing the broken village road using his money. By the third day, mothers were calling his name in prayers. Adanna felt like she was losing her mind. How could people forget so easily? Or worse, what if they knew something she didn't? That afternoon, while arranging yams on her wooden table, she felt someone stop in front of her stall. She looked up slowly. Adanna. Neither of them spoke. The market noise faded around them. For a moment, she was 17 again, hiding beneath smoke and ashes while her world burned apart. His face revealed nothing, but his eyes lingered on her longer than they should have. Then calmly, he reached into his pocket. "I'll take all of them," he said. Adanna frowned. "All?" He nodded once. Within minutes, his men carried away every yam from her table. Enough money sat in her hands to feed her household for weeks. But it didn't feel like kindness. It felt intentional, like a message she couldn't yet understand. And somehow, that frightened her more. 3 days later, he came to her door with bride price. The news spread through Yumiri village faster than Harmattan fire. Adanna had accepted Adanna's marriage proposal. People refused to believe it at first. Then the drinks arrived. The cola nuts followed, and suddenly the whispers became real. She has lost her senses. No woman marries the man who buried her family. Maybe he used charms on her. Old women shook their heads whenever she passed. Men spoke in low voices outside palm wine joints, glancing around carefully like the marriage itself carried bad luck. Even her aunt nearly cried from frustration. "Adanna, listen to yourself," she begged one evening while helping fold wedding wrappers. "That man brought death into this village." Adanna kept folding the clothes calmly. "You don't know that." Her aunt stared at her in disbelief. "Then why do your hands shake whenever you hear his name?" Adanna said nothing, because the truth was worse. Every night, she still heard her father's screams inside her dreams. She still saw flames swallowing their compound. Still wondered if Chike died afraid and alone somewhere in the darkness. And yet, she said yes. That was the part nobody understood. Not even her. During wedding preparations, women rubbed oil onto her skin and braided her hair while she smiled softly like a normal bride. But inside her mind, memories crawled like shadows. Smoke, blood, fire. Adanna standing beyond the flames. Sometimes she caught herself watching him during family meetings, searching his face for cruelty. Instead, she found something else. Guilt. It hid inside the way he spoke to her gently. The way he avoided sudden movements around her. The way his eyes lingered when he thought she wasn't looking. Like a man carrying something heavy on his soul. And somehow, that unsettled her more than hatred ever could. The wedding came quickly. Music filled the compound late into the night, but beneath her wrapper, the knife remained tied against her thigh. Waiting. When the celebrations finally ended, women escorted her into Adanna's room with teasing laughter before shutting the door behind them. Silence followed. Adanna stood stiffly near the bed, ready. Ready for violence. Ready for revenge. Ready to finally understand what kind of monster he truly was. But Adanna surprised her. Without a word, he picked up a mat and spread it carefully across the floor. Then he removed his outer robe and lay down facing the wall, leaving the bed untouched. Adanna frowned. "Aren't you going to say anything?" she asked quietly. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then finally, "I know you hate me." The words hit harder than shouting would have. Because there was no anger in his voice. Only exhaustion. Adanna tightened her fingers around the hidden knife. "What game are you playing?" she whispered. Adanna turned slightly toward her, shadows moving across his face in the lantern light. And then he whispered the one sentence she never expected to hear. "Your father was not the man you thought he was." After that night, the house no longer felt like a marriage home. It felt like a place filled with secrets breathing quietly behind locked doors. Adanna stopped sleeping properly. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Adanna's voice again. "Your father was not the man you thought he was." The sentence sat inside her chest like a stone. Heavy. Impossible to ignore. So she started searching. At first, it was small things. Opening drawers while the servants cooked outside. Checking shelves inside his study when he traveled to nearby villages. Listening carefully whenever visitors lowered their voices around him. And slowly, strange pieces began falling into her hands. Old letters tied together with red thread. Bundles of money records with her father's name written repeatedly across the pages. Small hidden charms buried beneath floor mats. Then one afternoon, while searching inside a wooden chest, her breath caught. Her father's necklace. The coral necklace he wore the night he died. Adanna froze. Her hands trembled as she held it. Why would Adanna keep this? As memory rushed back, anger followed quickly behind it. Maybe this was proof. Maybe he kept trophies from the people he destroyed. But then she noticed something else. Wrapped carefully beneath the necklace was a blood-stained cloth. Old. Folded neatly. Protected. Not hidden carelessly like a criminal hiding evidence. No. It looked preserved. Like something sacred. Nothing made sense anymore. The deeper Adanna searched, the darker the truth became. She discovered records showing her father owed large sums of money to dangerous men outside the village. Men connected to illegal trade routes near the river. Human trafficking. Smuggling. Disappearances. Her stomach turned while reading the papers. Could her father truly have been involved in something so terrible? No. Impossible. Yet the records carried his signature. And worse, some payments came from someone inside their own family compound. Someone close. Someone trusted. That realization frightened her more than the fire ever had. Because betrayal from strangers hurts. But betrayal from family destroys something deeper. Meanwhile, Adanna continued behaving in ways that made revenge harder each day. One evening during heavy rain, she woke screaming from another nightmare about the fire. Before she fully opened her eyes, she realized he was already beside her. Not touching her. Just sitting quietly nearby. Making sure she was breathing. Another day, she watched secretly from the balcony as he taught village children how to read beneath the nakwu tree. The children laughed around him without fear. One small girl even climbed into his lap while he told stories. That image unsettled Adanna deeply. Monsters weren't supposed to look human. But the worst moment came late one night. She woke thirsty and found Adanna sitting alone outside the house beneath the moonlight, crying silently, like a man mourning people he could never bring back. The next morning, she confronted him. "You were there that night," she said carefully. Adanna didn't deny it. "Yes." "Why?" For the first time, real pain crossed his face. "I came to save your family." Adanna stared at him. Every instinct screamed that he was lying. Yet something inside his eyes looked terrifyingly honest. And somehow, that frightened her more. That same night, she found a hidden room beneath the house. The hidden room smelled like dust, old paper, and something rotten buried too long beneath the earth. Adanna held the lantern tighter as she stepped carefully down the narrow wooden stairs. The floor creaked beneath her feet. Above her, the house remained silent. Adanna was gone to a council meeting. At least, that was what she prayed. The room below was small, but every corner carried secrets. Wooden boxes lined the walls. Maps covered a long table. Names, dates, payment records. Some familiar, some not. Then she saw her uncle's name. Uncle Emeka. Over and over again. Her chest tightened. No. She opened the first document with shaking fingers. And the world she knew began falling apart. Payment records. Signed agreements. Messages exchanged secretly with the same dangerous men connected to the river routes. Her uncle had been feeding them information for years. About her father. About the land. About village movements. Adanna's stomach twisted violently. The land conflict had never truly been about farming. The river behind their land was being used to move people secretly at night. Women, children, runaways sold like goods. Her father discovered it. And when he threatened to expose everyone involved, they silenced him. The fire was planned. Carefully, deliberately. Tears burned Adanna's eyes as she kept reading. Then another truth struck even harder. Adanna's name appeared too. But not as a partner. As an obstacle. There were letters warning him to stay away from Chief Okeke's compound. Threats demanding he stop interfering. One line stood out clearly. "If you protect that family again, you die with them." Again. Her breathing stopped. Adanna truly tried to help them. All these years, she had hated the wrong man. But the next discovery shattered her completely. At the bottom of a wooden box sat a photograph. Old, worn, torn at the edges. Adanna nearly dropped it. Chike. Older now. Alive. Her little brother had survived the fire. But he wasn't alone in the picture. He stood beside armed men near the river docks. The same men responsible for destroying their family. Adanna stumbled backward in horror. No, no, Chike. The room suddenly felt too small. Too hot. Everything she believed her entire life was collapsing around her like rotten wood. Her uncle betrayed them. Her father carried terrible secrets. Adanna tried to save them. And her missing brother had become part of the darkness that destroyed them all. The attack began during the feast. Drums were still playing outside when the first gunshot shattered the night. People screamed instantly. Bowls of soup crashed onto the ground. Children scattered between overturned chairs while armed men stormed through the compound like hunters entering a trapped animal's den. Adanna froze. Then she saw him. Chike. Older now. Harder. A long scar stretched across his cheek, but she recognized him immediately. Her little brother. Alive. For one impossible second, joy rushed through her chest. Then she noticed the rifle in his hands. Behind him stood Uncle Emeka and several armed men from the river routes. Everything turned cold again. Where is the money? Uncle Emeka shouted. Adanna hid it somewhere inside this house. Adanna stepped in front of Adanna immediately, protecting her. Even now, chaos exploded around them. Gunfire cracked through the compound while villagers ran into the darkness. One of the attackers rushed forward with a machete, but Adanna fought him down brutally before pulling Adanna behind him. "Stay close to me," he said. Blood stained his sleeve. Adanna stared at him in shock. Why was he still trying to protect her after everything? Then Chike lifted his rifle toward Adanna. "Move away from him, sister." His voice sounded strange now. Empty. Like life had scraped something human out of him years ago. Adanna's breathing shook. "Chike, you don't know the truth," he snapped. "That man destroyed us." Adanna said nothing. He only stood there quietly, ready to die if necessary. Uncle Emeka smiled from the shadows. "Finish him," he told Chike. The drums outside had stopped completely now. Only fear remained. Chike stepped closer, finger tightening on the trigger. Then he looked directly at Adanna and forced her heart to split in two. "Choose your blood," he said softly. His rifle pointed at Adanna's chest. "Or your husband." The final gunshot echoed through the compound like thunder. Then silence. Uncle Emeka lay exposed before the villagers at last, screaming desperate lies nobody believed anymore. The hidden documents had spilled across the floor during the fight. Names, payments, betrayals. The truth was finally naked. But it came too late. Chike collapsed beside the doorway, blood spreading slowly beneath him. His rifle slipped from his fingers as Adanna dropped beside him, trembling. Her little brother looked at her one last time. Then he was gone. Behind her, Adanna fell heavily against the wall. A deep wound bled through his clothes. "Adanna!" Adanna cried, rushing toward him. His shaking hand reached inside his robe and pulled out an old folded letter stained by time. "Your father," he whispered painfully. "He gave me this the night of the fire." Adanna opened it with trembling fingers and broke. Inside, her father's handwriting filled the page. Adanna was innocent. He had tried to stop the attack. And if anything happened, Chief Okeke trusted him to protect her. Tears blurred her vision as she looked at the dying man before her. Everything could have been different. For years, she hunted the wrong monster and married the only man who ever tried to save her.
African Tales Unfurled. 2 Game Creatives.